Just go search the Tailgate Kings. Really easy to find us, www.thetailgatekings.com. Hop on YouTube, look for The Tailgate Kings, all sorts of fun things. Got a Twitch channel. We're going to have
we are doing it all.
We're trying to get you all sorts of entertainment during this this bear period. Like, there wasn't even new SVU Thursday night. I was upset. Nothing else, Law & Order gets me through, man. Yeah, if nothing else. All right, brought to you by the Sleep Disorder Center of Louisiana, 4820 Lake Street. Look, right now, Doc Connor, call, email. You can get yourself an appointment via the internet and whatnot. He's doing web appointments. They have a non-contact pickup. Like I said, if there's ever a time to get your sleep taken care of, now's the time, especially, like I said, if you're still not feeling well-rested and you've been sleeping like crazy every day, this might be the time to go find out. Go see Doc Connor's friendly staff over there, 4820 Lake Street, the Sleep Disorder Center of Louisiana.
Change your life.
Also brought to you by Mattress Factory Direct. Look, you just got your stimulus check. Why not use it to buy a new mattress? No reason not to. Donnie Reed's got the best mattresses at the best prices. Go over and see him, 3122 Ryan Street. And if you mention the Tailgate Kings, free set of sheets when you buy a new mattress.
Come on now.
It's like a $200 value almost. You're like saving money left and right. Go see Donnie Reed over there, Mattress Factory Direct. All right. We also had the draft last week. Drafts changed a lot of things going forward in the NFL. We've seen a lot of people go places. We'll talk about the Packers here in a second. We'll talk about the Patriots. But of course, first we'll talk about the Saints. The Saints and also their QB situation right now. Because like you said, they've got Drew Brees. They gave Taysom Hill $22 million. $22 million. Jameis Winston got $1 million. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm okay with Jameis only getting $1 million. Taysom's worth 22. That was kind of surprising.
It's insane, is what it is. It's completely erroneous. Look, I'm all for the switchblade there. The guy, but come on, man. As inaccurate as Jameis is, he's still a guy who at that position is a weapon. And bravo to the Saints for prioritizing the need, because I had said all along, we were discussing this months ago, what's going to happen and do they retain all three or let Teddy go or what? I was always of the mind that if you had your best case scenario, you'd keep all three. Teddy obviously demanded a higher salary, but I still never felt comfortable with Hill as a backup quarterback. I like him as a weapon on your football team. I like him as a guy that, I think will, as the gadgetry and the intricate different play calling evolves, will have more of a role this year than last. But I don't think he's your answer if Drew Brees gets hurt. Now you have an answer, and you have a blueprint, and you have a strong community to show him how to be what he has always sought to be, hopefully, or, as far as, what it has appeared he's wanted. So maybe this is just the change of scenery and the opportunities needed.
It might be. And like I said, we'll talk about that. Let's look at the other parts of the draft. Jason, would you not say that the Saints, with only 4 picks in this draft, might have made the most out of their 4 picks?
Yeah, I was really impressed, actually. So some of it's luck, right? People falling to you. But Cesar Ruiz was a very, very smart pick.
Right.
Not because our line isn't fine, but because he plays center and he has a history of playing right guard. He didn't switch to center, and I think he played center his last 2 seasons at Michigan, or maybe just a season and a half when somebody got hurt. So he's a guy can play at multiple positions. You have time to train him, and if somebody gets hurt, you can get him in there. And once he's good enough, you can have a more well-rested line and switch him out during drives. Perfect way to handle that. Zach Bond, Wisconsin provides great pass rushers, right? Anybody named Watt, right? Like, Wisconsin is a Big Ten school, and they're one that frequently shuts down and surprises teams like Ohio State, right? And Penn State, teams that have good run games, teams that have good pass games. Like, if you're going to go for a linebacker on defense, you can't really go wrong with the product out of Wisconsin. It just always works. And then Troutman's a guy I've been watching up here in Dayton play for the Flyers for 3 years now. He went from 500 yards to 600 yards to 900 yards. Remember, he's in a division where they only play 11 games, and last year he had 14 touchdowns. Woo. He just he's enormous. He catches the ball and just runs people over. And he is exactly what Drew Brees has been missing. Saints fans often long for the days of Jimmy Graham. I think this guy has that kind of talent. Like Graham, unfortunately, I think he's going to be a bit of a blocking issue. But you can also move people around, right? He's a guy who you put him in motion, then you throw him in the slot, stuff like that. So Sean Payton knows how to hide Troutman's inability to block until he figures out how to block, and he gives Drew Brees the piece he's really been missing. I think that pick, having him follow those slots and being able to get him, is huge. It fills a giant void. That plus Emmanuel Sanders puts the Saints in position to be back in the title game.
No, you're totally right. And that big target in the end zone that Trautman can become is like the one thing that the Saints have been missing, is everybody can double up on Michael Thomas. Kamara, as much as I love Alvin Kamara, if you know he's getting the ball, you're stopping him. You can stop him at the goal line. He's not a break through the goal line kind of guy. He's a trick you with his move sort of guy. So getting Trautman in there as a big target in the end zone is going to open it up so much for everybody else when the Saints get in scoring position. So that's a great pick right there. Really interesting to see, because we were talking about how tight end was one of the needs for the Saints going into this draft, and coming out with Trautman, who a lot of people projected as one of the top tight ends. Really impressive for the Saints to do. And then did you see
especially in that round? I didn't think he'd last that long. I think people were worried because of him playing with the Division II team or D1 or whatever they call it, But Jerry Rice played for a team like that, right?
Right.
like lots of players come out of smaller colleges. Brilliant pick.
And then did you see the final pick? The Saints didn't have a final day pick. They only had a first and 2/3. They moved up back into the draft, into the 7th round, to take Tommy Stevens from Mississippi State, who fits into the Taysom Hill sort of mold. And he saw this. He saw that Joe Brady wanted him, that Carolina was already on the phone with him to sign him as an undrafted free agent. And Sean Payton said, "No, sir," and went in there and got the guy. How great is that? How great is Sean Payton? Sean Payton just trolling guys left and right this offseason. Did you see that tweet as well he sent for the Falcons or whatever?
I love the guy.
Yeah, I agree with the tweet being a troll. I don't think having somebody to move into Hill's spot as Hill moves into Breeze's spot is really doing it just to be a jerk. I think it's strategic in more ways than one. I think that's actually a really smart pick. This was a very look, I think the Colts and the Ravens probably mastered this draft better than anybody else. But for the amount of picks the Saints have, they would definitely be up there. They did as good or better than anybody else. They'd be in my top 3 without a doubt.
Yeah, no, for what the Saints needed, they got pretty much anything that that they needed to fill the holes in, and that in free agency. So those are the 2 spots. Bringing in Emmanuel Sanders, huge. I think. I'm hoping that he's the Manny Sanders of old.
Malcolm Jenkins.
But bringing back Malcolm Jenkins, another good move. Yeah, on the defense.
They're just solid moves across the board. The Saints are there. The Saints are. In my opinion, they've moved slightly ahead of the Niners as the team to represent the NFC.
It's going to come down to Breeze, really, or the quarterback play. So let's talk about.
It's going to come down to home field advantage.
Okay, that too probably, and that you know what? It's going to change things, because what does it do with Tampa Tom or Tompa Tam or whatever? What's it do with Tompa Tam being in the division? It doesn't mean that the Saints are not going to. It just means that there might be another team in a different division, because the NFC South is going to be tough this year. I don't know. We're going to get to over-unders here in a second. I don't know if any team's going to win more than 10 games in the NFC South this year. It could be
bloody.
And we could easily see, your Niners is an 11, 12-win team still. So there's a number of other teams that could pop up. But the South just feels like it's a deadly zone. Okay, so let's talk about the Packers now real fast. What about Rodgers, man? Jason, how many more years does Rodgers stay in Green Bay, or is he gone?
He ain't going nowhere for 2 years.
Yeah, he can't go anywhere basically for 2 years, which that's one thing I hate. I don't understand this dead cap money thing. I've never understood the salary cap structure. One day, you got to have like a PhD or a CPA or something in math, but it doesn't make any sense why trading the guy would put like a $60 or a $30 million hit, and then next year it's like 19 or something.
Yeah, it seems too punitive.
Yeah, it seems extremely punitive. But if you're Rodgers, Jay, do you want out of Green Bay ASAP? Do you want out after those 2 years, or how do you feel?
I imagine the knee-jerk reaction for him is to be upset. But I think we'll see. We'll surely learn a lot about Aaron Rodgers' emotional intelligence over the next year, right? Because here's a guy who's long kind of been pissy about Brett Favre not being his mentor, and now he has a chance to mentor a guy under him, right? So it's like, well, you kind of knew this was going to happen, right? It's like the guy who, like, has an affair, cheats on his wife, marries his mistress, and then is surprised when his mistress cheats on him, right?
Ha!
right. Like,
That's
you're
exactly
surprised
right.
by that, are you? right? Like,
Don't you remember how we met, sweetheart?
right, exactly. Like, so we'll see how Rodgers handles that. Look, the team did him the biggest favor any team can do. They fired a coach that everybody knows is a darn good coach, who has a Super Bowl ring, who has a way of winning games and keeping you in the running all the time. They did that for Rodgers. So he can't really have any complaints here, right? He literally can have no complaints. That doesn't mean he won't complain. But if he does, that's kind of on him, not on the team. The team is doing what they need to do. And they've already gone out on a limb and got him a coach he wanted instead of a coach that their GM and their, since the team owns the city, I should say their ownership, their management, not their ownership. They've done what he asked, and they're doing what they need to do at the same time. So he shouldn't have any complaints. I do think he'll leave. I think he'll try to go somewhere else unless he wins a Super Bowl. If he's able to get a Super Bowl for the Packers in the next 2 years, I think he would retire at that point. He clearly is a guy who's kind of just doing it for the money at this point to a certain extent. If he had an excuse to go out on top, he would. But I think if he doesn't get a ring there in the next 2 years, which seems unlikely with the Saints and the Niners and so much competition around him, I imagine he will end up going somewhere else for a year. And look, Elway in Denver has set this up to get those guys, right? He's like, yeah, come here, Tom Brady. Come here, Aaron Rodgers. Like, Denver is just a quarterback away again. So there's opportunities for Rodgers and other guys to go somewhere in the next 2 years.
I'm with you that he maybe shouldn't be surprised, but I mean, you can't put it on Rodgers in a lot of ways. I mean, Green Bay, when they had Favre was already talking about retirement at that time. And then Aaron Rodgers fell in their laps because Chad's team was dumb and took Alex Smith at the number 1 pick instead of taking Aaron Rodgers with the number 1 pick, and could have changed 49ers history forever. But I mean, they traded up to get Jordan Love, and they just signed Rodgers to a 4-year contract that they can't get him out of. It just seems like
492 available wide receivers in this draft, and they didn't get one of them.
And not only that, it feels like this is a decision that if they had an owner, the owner would never have signed off on. Like, this is a decision you only get when the city is your owner, and there's nobody you have to answer to as a GM sort of thing. I don't know. I mean, I can see where Rodgers may not be surprised, because Green Bay did Favre maybe this way, but this feels even dirtier when you move up in the draft to take the guy, and then like I said, you just renewed Rodgers' contract. I mean,
and what was it? He's thrown 1 touchdown in his career to a number 1
to a first-round pick, and that was Mercedes Lewis, like last year. Some guy they
that
traded
can't
for.
be right. That's the most insane stat I'd ever seen in my life.
Because he's like Tom Brady and Peyton Manning were in the sense that, like, he gets a bunch of no-name wide receivers and he makes them names. Geronimo Allison. You would not know who Geronimo Allison was.
No, but
he was
still,
on any other team.
The other 2 guys you mentioned had vastly higher numbers of touchdowns thrown to first-round picks.
I'm sure they did.
It was like not. I mean,
I'm just saying,
one.
Rodgers makes you think that he has just incredible guys like Vontaze Scalding. That guy's an undrafted free agent on the team, playing like your number 2 receiver.
It was honestly, I've never been more shocked at a stat in my life.
So here's the question though, because here's something I keep forgetting, because Devin Funchess is so forgettable. Is Devin Funchess enough of a wide receiver?
They signed Devin Funchess?
Yeah, Devin Funchess is with Devon. Yeah, like I said,
who cares?
Right. So that shows you.
Who cares? No, that's not. It's not going to help you. Who? I don't even know who else they have anymore. Did they?
Devontae Adams and Devin Funchess.
Did they keep?
They got Lazard still, or whatever that dude's name is.
What about Allison? Did he stick around, or did he go somewhere else?
I don't know that guy. That guy, like I said, he's not.
It doesn't really matter.
He's on the
honestly.
practice squad.
Yeah. So who knows? I just think it's sad. Really, honestly, I'm obviously a Rodgers guy. He's a Bay Area guy. I don't necessarily agree with some of his tactics in the clubhouse. It sounds like he's a little bit too churlish and surly for my need.
And supposedly that's the reason your Niners passed on him in the first place.
Because he was a head case?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think there's some level of that that's proven out. So, look, I wouldn't say that if in 2 years and he's still capable, we wouldn't want to, if we're going to still use Garoppolo to throw it 9 times a game, at least look at Aaron. You know, we can do that. But I just think it's not – I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair to your community, your city, to invest all of that money in you know, this your best player and then not do anything to give him a chance to showcase his ability. I don't understand, I guess, more than anything. It's very confusing to watch that and think that much depth at the position and you couldn't find one guy, at least one guy to help.
I hear you. Jay, we're talking.
I'd be PO'd.
But last year, Jay, we saw that Aaron Jones was kind of the bigger Aaron on the team in a lot of ways. Aaron Jones ran the ball very well, kept Green Bay in a lot of those games. The Packers bring in A.J. Dillon in the second round, running back out of Boston College. And apparently, according to LaFleur, he wants a more run-centric game, less passing, more running. Is this maybe a good thing for Rodgers to maybe become more of a game manager in his upper years?
It is, unquestionably, you know. And look, one thing that Rodgers was one of the few things Rodgers has ever been consistent about. Last year, he was consistent about complimenting his offensive line over and over and over again about what a good job they did protecting him, about what a good job they did setting up the run. They had some growing pains earlier in the year where he was having to throw the ball sidearm because they were always doing pass protection. And I think they finally got it together and started doing a run-first system, which then allows them to drive, and then it gives Rodgers more room to grow. Look, if you're a quarterback, what's more important to you? Would you rather have a good offensive line or good receivers?
Offensive line.
Exactly. So like we can be in the situation where we're like, oh my God, they didn't get many receivers all day and they got a quarterback. But at the end of the day, you know what Rodgers wants? The thing he complimented all last year. He wants an intact, solid offensive line. He doesn't care if they run first. He doesn't care if they pass first. He just wants to be protected, and he wants the run game to work so that whether they're passing first or running first, he has those opportunities. And a guy with an ego so big, his main desire 2 years ago is to get his head coach who helped win a Super Bowl fired. That's a guy who is more than happy to take no-name receivers and take all the credit too.
Fair point. And didn't Matt LaFleur, wasn't he the one who said, look, I'm not going to just stand down to Aaron. If he wants to battle, I'll show him how to battle. He's basically said, I'm not going to be Mike McCarthy and just take it, you know?
Yeah, he said he wouldn't be a yes man, and he doesn't appear to be. And if I'm a Packers fan, my biggest concern is that offensive line. I'm not too worried. Like, yes, Geronimo, Allison, with the St. Brown. Like receivers whose names I don't know. But also, you know, a lot of our life is based on fantasy football these days, right? And so if you have 6 receivers who all have 300 or 400 yards, you might not know those 6 guys' names, but if you have 2 who have 1,000 yards, you know each guy's name, right? Right? So, look, I'm not saying it wouldn't be nice for him to have receivers. It certainly would, but I don't think they're in that bad of a position. I think they're definitely behind San Francisco. They're definitely behind the Saints. I think those 2 teams stand above the rest right now, but they're not in a bad position, and I wouldn't be surprised if they traded for a wide receiver at some point. I'm more worried about them letting their defensive players go and trying to refill that for the draft when they've finally gotten a team that was able to slow down strong offenses.
Yeah, now their run defense it was pretty poor last season. That was their losing grace against your Niners was the fact they couldn't stop the run. So
we kicked that, Heine.
Yeah, you did.
Sorry, Casey.
So, all right. So let me see what else I was going to say. One last thing about Rodgers. What is that? Is that just the outside?
Sounds like something coming by here.
That's
like
so while you're thinking about the plane is landing.
It sounds like a plane.
You didn't think about the Rodgers thing. I want to say the Taysom Hill contract is not bad. I mean, what do you classify Taysom Hill is? Like, yes, he's a gadget player. He's a quarterback. I mean, and you know, there's a mistake here when we do this quantitative thing where we look at Winston getting $1 million for 1 year, and we say Hill is getting $20 million, but Hill's getting that over 2 years. So he's getting $10 million a year, which is about what you pay for a top-tier tight end. And what he brings the Saints is about the same as a top-tier tight end brings in, maybe more. I think his salary, even if you're not grooming him to be quarterback, is right on par. It's it's fair market for his value.
Yeah, I don't know what he is yet. I think at that price tag, you're going to have to integrate him more as a weapon in your system. I don't think he can just be the gadget guy this year. I think you're going to have to,
And they will.
I hope so. I hope so. Yeah.
That Breeze is better without a full season, that we need to lower his passing, to have more run games, to have more gadget plays. I mean, we kind of got lucky with his injury not being bad, but him getting that break.
Do you think it's kind of what we're seeing in Philly with them drafting Jalen Hurts and possibly trying to integrate the same kind of game plan to keep some stress and pressure off of Carson Wentz's day-to-day bruisings?
100%. And I think that when Carson Wentz went out in that first playoff game with a concussion in the third quarter and what was a unquestionably winnable game, looking over and not being able to point to Nick Foles, it must have been heartbreaking, right? So they don't want that to happen again. And Wentz is what? He's I think 3 of 5 seasons he hasn't finished the season. So there's no doubt that that's a good draft pick. And they lessened the blow on Wentz, unlike what the Packers did with Rodgers, by getting him a wide receiver in the first round.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so Raj, that's what I'm thinking. So Cowboys can't seem to find happiness with Dak Prescott. If they sign him to the franchise tag for 2 years, and then on the third year, maybe you reunite Aaron Rodgers and Mike McCarthy down in Dallas.
No, the more logical spot for him to go would be if in 2 years the 49ers have not achieved their ultimate goals with this group of guys in the window that they have. If it's at all related to Jimmy G's performance, I think you would see the hometown boy want to resurface in the Bay.
That could be a possibility. I think also if Justin Herbert doesn't work out in San Diego, I think San Diego's a location.
Yeah, definitely moving West Coast would make sense. Anything West Coast, I could see.
What about the Patriots, Jay? What are the Patriots doing? Do they need a quarterback? Do they even need one? I mean, can Bill Belichick?
Do they really like Stidham this much, Jay? Is that real, or is this bravado?
I mean, they like him a little bit.
As a rule, I hate Bill Belichick, but I loved his little draft thing where, they put the camera on him and his dog was just sitting there. Now and then he does things that you're just like, oh, that's so smart. And not just the cheating. I think what he's doing now is brilliant. He's like, I don't need a quarterback. Nah, whatever. Maybe he signs Dalton. I think he should. I usually don't share things from, Ohio football because it's so bad, But the fact that Dalton, he's the only guy in the last decade to have 30,000 yards, 200 TDs, 70+ wins. It's him, Brady, Rodgers, all the usual suspects, 5 or 6 guys who you'd expect. And then Andy Dalton. And he was doing that with Marvin Lewis as his head coach and unquestionably the worst general management and ownership. Them or the Jaguars have been vying for that for a decade now. Really, really bad management. So I think it would be smart of Belichick to nab him up while he can. But I don't know if he needs it. We've seen time and again when Brady's had a missed time, whoever his replacement goes in and does well and gets them in the playoffs and makes a run 2 or 3 games into the playoffs.
Jay,
I don't think he needs it.
Jay, do you feel like the organization screwed Dalton by releasing him when they did? Was that poor form? Was that dirty pool? Feels to me like it was.
Unquestionably, and they did the same thing last year where I think they, for the first time ever, benched him for a game 1 week before the trade deadline or something like that.
On his birthday. They benched him on his birthday.
I remember that.
On his birthday, and when they should have left him in and then traded him if they knew they were getting rid of him because it was clearly a rebuild year, right? Yeah. So, they've done him wrong. But let's face it, the Bengals have done pretty much every player on that team wrong. And they've gone about building a team in the completely wrong way time and time again. We'll see if this new coach bucks that trend, but it's doubtful. You have to worry about Joe Burrow's future.
Very worried, very worried. Was hopeful, very hopeful that they were going to pivot out of that, recognize their complete and total vast needs across the board and take somebody's haul and all the booty that came with it and get Joe free from having to suffer that reality. I don't see it working. Look, I think Dalton, and you guys have been screaming it. You both have said he's going to be a Patriot.
I don't know anymore. I thought that Belichick was waiting for them to release.
He kind of said something about him, right?
Didn't
he make a comment about him or give some reason to make you think?
Way back in February or something.
Something
like that.
There was reason. He threw some fuel on the fire.
Somebody or a reporter asked him a question, something like that. But
did he say something like, "I could win with even Andy Dalton"?
I don't know if it was that condescending. But it was. But you're waiting, and
glorified version.
He wasn't going to trade for him. So you're just waiting for the Bengals to cut Andy Dalton. And I figured once they cut him, we would hear within 24 hours a deal with the Patriots. And the fact that we haven't heard anything on that front makes me feel like we all just assumed that would be the perfect landing spot. But as always, Bill Belichick has other plans, And
I don't know enough about this kid Stidham. I really don't. I don't understand how he's gained so much trust so quickly. I mean, he must have like some Jimmy G magic. That old
cheater or not, we've seen that the true cheaters went down to Tampa Bay. That's right. Did you hear about Tom Brady walking into Byron Leftwich's neighbor's house?
No,
because he didn't know it was Byron. He thought it was Byron Leftwich's house because he was going over there. He said to pick up the playbook, but the guy whose house he broke into said he had duffel bags like things ready for a workout, which you're not supposed to be able to do. And then,
wait.
And then did you hear Gronk when Gronk got interviewed? Gronk was like, I've had the Tampa Bay playbook for like 4 weeks. which and then he came back and said he was joking. And he probably was joking.
He was being sarcastic.
But here we have the Tampa Bay Gronkeneers, the Tampa Bay Gronkeneers, just admitting or just all sorts of small little infractions already. Belichick ain't done nothing since Brady left.
Maybe it's not Belichick is what you're saying.
Deflategate, that's all Brady technically,
oh my gosh. Yeah, well, look, you never fully, I guess, divorce yourself of your habits and your styles and and whatever it is that you're going to do to gain a competitive advantage, you're going to do it, especially if you're at that point in your career. I think it's great. They re-signed OJ Howard too. Did you see that? So they got Gronk and they re-signed OJ and they got Cameron Brate. With those wideouts, dude, that they went and got the kid Wirfs. This team is scary. I don't think they're as good as the Saints, but that defense, I think, got shortchanged a lot last year because they were put in so many short field situations with Jameis playing for the other team. It made it a real hard thing for them. I think they're
it's going to come down to how Noodle Arm plays, man. Can Noodle Arm can he distribute
still
that ball?
Calling him Noodle Arm.
It's not like he's not a Noodle Arm, man. He's still a Noodle Arm. All right.